Welcome to AI in Associations. So today I've got some great folks from the ABC, one of the largest associations in the construction space. So I've got Patrick Scarpati, who's Director of Construction Tech and Innovation for ABC, and then Steve Sanko, who's CEO of Dash Door and Glass, but also on that same committee, the Tech Innovation of Committee of the ABC. So, guys, welcome to this webinar, and I'd love to kind of get into it a little bit. But thanks for joining.
Good morning.
Thank you.
So, part of what I actually came after ABC and asked really hard to get you guys here because ABC is pretty far ahead when it comes to an association helping its members to navigate AI. You guys you've been at it earlier, but also you put out a lot of guidance, policy, explanations, videos. Both of you have been on some of them, but there's just a lot of depth there. So I wanted to start with just let's talk about what ABC is doing right now. What do you guys what are you putting out and kind of what's the posture?
Yeah, I'll jump into this one first. And Hugh, thanks for the kind words about ABC in general and noticing the efforts that we have put in place to really help not just our members, but the entire industry, right? That's why we're here, voice of this industry. So resources go, young AI, go back to just ChatGPT peeking its head and above the surface, right? It feels like only a few years ago, and it was. And at that point, it was okay. So many more people are asking about it. Members, contractors, what can we do to just get that ball rolling and continue that conversation? And few things were put in place immediately. Were webinars? Can we get webinars out? Can we get conversations? Can we get subject matter experts on? And then we put together a website. It's a ABC resource AI resource guide website. It's very like base level, right? So we want to introduce common terms in AI and then examples throughout the project lifecycle, just to give people an idea of how to interact with AI. Beyond that, I think you mentioned the policy stuff. That was in the beginning, it sounded like the creating a policy for your company was not talked about, very common.
Yeah.
So we were helping lead that. Like, what do you look for? Do you have a policy? Talk to your IT people. So that's really where it started, and partnering with our committee, right, Steve? Like, and I'll have you chime in here, and really leaning on our tech committee, these leaders from all around the country, from companies all shapes and sizes, on who should we be talking to at ABC, and then bringing them out to the masses in general.
Appreciate that. Yeah, Patrick, being on this committee, this is my first year on the committee, but looking as a member, talking about what was generated by this committee prior, there was a tech report in 2024, and it's done annually. It's an amalgamation of those ideas and those discussions that are had at the committee level. A lot of representing the swath of construction, large general contractors, specialty contractors, trades. To me, the value as a member, I'm going to speak as a member here, is that AI tech report that was created, for example, discusses various vendors that are offering resources, a glossary of terms. We talk about RAG and what these things mean in AI, and just a base level education to get somebody somewhere to then be able to use the resources ABC offers.
Yeah, you touched on something I think that's really important, and that's definitions. Because when you spend time on LinkedIn, everybody's skipping ahead to agents, and I've just created a $10 million company with me and my dog, and you're like, oh my God, we are so far behind. And then you talk to real companies that are not, a consultant in England or something, and you're like, well, nobody knows what we're doing here. Nobody knows what these words mean. We keep skipping over definitions. So it's, if you say rag, people are going to be like, yeah, I just use one on my dishes. Like
Right.
being able to just tell people it's not such a big deal. It means you're pointing it at some data and documents, so on. Like most of these terms are not that hard to explain, but no one wants to stop a meeting to say, hang on a minute, what did that word mean? So I think you really do a service by giving people, and honestly, I think it's on the front page of the AI resources site where you just list out, here's some basics for you, and then pretty easy links. And I really like that because again, I've had experiences where people like boards have invested hundreds of thousands into technology and they didn't know some simple words like what's an API, and that was central to what they were doing because nobody wanted to stop and say, what is this? And a board meeting is not a great time to stop and ask for definitions. So, when decision makers that have 40 other things on their plate, when AI comes up, it's nice that they've spent 20 minutes just saying, all right, I just looked through this. I got a good sense of what we're talking about. And then you can apply your judgment and experience without needing to make guesses, right?
Let me, Hugh, to that point with the definitions, it's also an opportunity for us to understand who the audience is, because let's be honest. I mean, how many how many people in construction deep down care about what these definitions are? We want to make them familiar, and
Yeah.
AI, machine learning, vision, like all this stuff. But it's not everybody, right? It depends. And the efforts we've put into place is boots on the ground. Maybe you've noticed this, and our committee has obviously as well. We don't have a national technology oriented event. We have national events throughout the year. What we do with technology and education is we make it a point to get to every single region of ABC in the country and hit over half of the chapters. So now we're hyper focused on that specific member base and customer base. And construction is not the same everywhere in this country. There's going to be pockets that are heavy industry, heavy oil and gas, or there's going to be pockets heavy multifamily, heavy apartment, heavy healthcare. And their priorities are going to be different when it comes to technology adoption and what they really want to do with AI. And that feeds us more information on, wow, we can really level this playing field and bring this education to the forefront and connect with the construction industry at a whole different level, really in their front yard. We're going to them. Like, what are you building? Tell me about it. And then how can AI impact you there? So, I wanted to bring that up as well. Steve's been part of it where he is in Florida, right, with these tech events. And it's a community, right, Steve? You feel like it's a community that
Our
gets
tech of
together.
it's great you say that because there's what we have 66 chapters. The tech fairs that we have that you all come down and support as national coming down to our piece. Roundtables are set up. We have contractors of various sizes discussing issues like data governance, discussing AI, discussing field technology. So it's not just AI. That's not all that's being noted here, but how technology is affecting construction all different ways and how everybody of different sizes can take part. It's not the $4 billion contractors who are only driving this. Majority of our members aren't that size. So teaching and educating in a way that brings value to those members will really elevate the industry. And that's the point. That's the value chain.
Well, there's another thing that relates to that. So on the one hand, there's the ground level engagement and listening. But the other one is you guys have also spent some time, at least as much time as you have on AI, it looks like, on cybersecurity. And I think that for associations listening to this, that's a good idea. If it wasn't something that you were as focused on before, now is a good time to stand up
Hmm.
some effort to think about cybersecurity for a few reasons. One of them is I think AI is making cybersecurity. We're seeing that already. We kind of were before, but you're hearing more about it literally in this last week. That you're hearing about hackers using AI to really increase how many ways they can go after it. So just baseline cybersecurity was always a problem, but it's a bigger one and probably going to become a higher velocity problem than it was. But also, the first thing you hear people say about I was just at a conference where almost everything people asked about is, does my data get used? Does it get used to train? Is it secure if I use a chatbot or whatever? And there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Most of the chatbots give you a way to turn it off, and their terms of service are discoverable and pretty clear. In fact, you can use the chatbot to discover its own terms of service, which is, funny.
Mhm.
Whether you feel like you want to put the information in there anyway becomes a different decision. Then it's do I trust that company? Not are they saying they're doing it or not? Um, and I think again you can go. That's a little bit of a rabbit hole. But the point I'm making is this makes thinking about cybersecurity more formally more of a priority than it already was, and it already was one.
You, it's such a great point because cybersecurity, even in the same light as data in general, has been a tough topic to bring to people. It's just not sexy, right? It's not flashy. When you think of technology and innovation, some people think it's robotics, it's AI, it's the things you can maybe physically hold and use. But cybersecurity, it really is an issue. And it feels like, I mean, construction is year over year top five for ransomware incidents. And AI, I think, helps shine a brighter light onto that because you can almost pair them together. Like you said, yes, there's bad actors. And is it accelerating these incidents happening? But it also brings awareness, right, to our contractors. And then we're able to connect those dots and say, here's some processes in place, things to consider, have these plans ready. And then AI, right? Again, if we're not going to go too deep in that rabbit hole, but open source versus closed source, like what does that really mean? Do you have control of AI and where you're pointing it, or are you just handing your data over and this company can do whatever they want, right? And say, well, we'll point AI to your data, but we have all this other data too, and we're going to do whatever we want with it. So there's different things that come into play, but I think it just helps open that conversation with cybersecurity data and AI all together.
Patrick and I had a conversation recently. It was very good from the standpoint of the misconceptions, and you noted to this here that people have that if I put something in ChatGPT, it's automatically training a model, and someone's going to see it right away. So that there's a fear there at a certain level of savvy that somebody has about AI. Like I'm not going to use that. That's very dangerous, and that's we were saying that's the headlines. You have to get through those headlines and really get to some base level of technicality to understand that's not how it works. So you compare data governance, I believe, is foundational and security is going to be more important than AI in the next 5, 10 years. Because of the things you noted. So we have data, it takes somebody to get hit once to all of a
Yeah.
sudden understand how important it is. So maybe everyone has to get hit once to say, hey, this is important. But you have the security aspect of it. But now you look at data governance and say, how do I use AI? Well, I need internal governance to understand how things are classified and who can chat with what documents and how it's being used. So external, yes, people are going to spend money on red teaming their company and bolstering up their defense, but also internal governance and classification so they can use these models. So they go hand in hand, as Patrick said.
Well, this again is where that from the ground up approach is really helpful because I think when you use a word like governance, it sounds and it can be really involved, but it doesn't have to be. It can start with things that are pretty easy to turn off. And great example is most of the chatbots will say that we train on your model unless you opt out, but the opt out is one click. So it's super easy to do. And you say to everybody, you're not supposed to use this, but if we catch you using it and you didn't do this, it's going to be worse. Like, how do you
Mhm.
phrase it so that you're not implicitly saying, "Hey, go ahead and use whatever you want," but at least you can say, nothing gets used without these couple of steps. You think about cybersecurity as an enabling technology for everything else, or technology slash kind of practice. And it doesn't have to be, let's stand up, three PhDs to get it done. You can start with this is a focus that and most boards do. Most boards will have on their items to talk about what's going on with cybersecurity. Maybe not at every meeting, but it's certainly on most people's radar at this point. But I think the point is there are resources that you guys provide that are out there otherwise that you can do certain things pretty easily and early, and then get more sophisticated if the risk requires it.
Another way to look at this, whether you're adopting any tech in general, right? Cybersecurity is obviously very important. Is that backbone, safeguards everything, you're protecting your company. A lot of the data we have now is going to be cloud-based, no matter what. So it's already out there, and how are you protecting it? But circling back around to who are we hiring in this industry now, and the evolution of our workforce and what it looks like. I mean, here we are representing technology and innovation in our committee. That's the future workforce, right? Or that's the current workforce. And what do they need to be aware of? Are companies now hiring? They need the construction experience because we're always going to be building something, but you want that tech experience too, familiarity with AI, with data. So, our recruiting efforts getting more unique. With this, we're at this intersection between academia and the trades of the traditional 4-year apprenticeship program, we're bringing those together now because we can learn from each other and make this theory absolutely practical on a
Mm.
job site. And now, you're boosting labor value essentially on the job site. It's just another way to frame it and think about, who are we hiring? And it's not just typical construction workforce anymore. It's okay, what are these other attributes that we need to build up our company and have a successful future for the long term?
How
That
much you guys, go ahead, Steve.
real quick, no, something Patrick said. It's not triggering me, but it's funny. I was speaking to our president recently. We were laughing. We're contractors, right? We do doors and hardware, glass and glazing service, 70-year-old company. But we laughed. We said, "Are we turning into a tech company?" And not it's a slippery slope because you think that because you're a contractor and we're out working on job sites like everybody else. But you have to flip your mind a little bit. And I'm going to go back to that data maturity diagram in the ABC Tech Report. Level three is leveraging. And I saw something on there that made me smile. It said, when you start looking at analysts, and I'm like, well, we don't have analysts on staff. Do you need that? Can you outsource that? And we just started having those conversations. How do we augment our team, to Patrick's point, to look at the data in a different way and gain insights from it? That's key. That's key on that journey, on that data journey, to bring in help where you need it. And anybody can. We're a small, mid-sized contractor. Anybody can do that. It's not difficult.
A different way of looking at data is, or a different way of looking at external resources where, a lot of contractors are pretty resistant to bringing in consultants. I mean, they do, but it's just not as much a part of the culture as some other industries might be. But in this one, because you maybe don't need to spend $1 million to get, somebody that we all know the names of to come in, you can get somebody who's a freelancer to say, hey, we're going to do this once a quarter, and I want you to look at our data and help us generate insights. And each quarter, we're going to ask better questions because we don't even know what to ask in the beginning, but we start to see what comes out and get more and more sophisticated. So I'd be interesting to see over time, does that become more normal that you bring in folks to do things that you don't really want to hire for, but are really helpful for decision making, especially longer term decision making, like what's going on. The industry, COVID was a particularly sharp kind of discontinuity, but this is always evolving. There's always something going on with supply chain and labor and technology and regulation and this and that, where what people are spending on obviously is changing. All of that, means that you might want to look at your data and understand your own business at a different level than your own experience, which is kind of what makes the data make sense, right? Like no one's saying that experience and judgment are going away. Quite the opposite. You know what to do with the data because of your experience, whereas someone who's young is going to say, "That's a cool looking chart. Look, that
Black
bar is
box.
higher than that bar," as
Go
opposed to this.
fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As opposed to, well, the implications of this are we should be thinking about contingencies, or we don't need to spend as much over here. So I think that the idea is you're giving people who've, spent lots of time seeing the complexity of the industry, the ability to do more with what they already have.
We still want critical thinkers. I think you were saying I was it's putting myself on a job site and you're walking through and say you have all this experience, 30 plus years being a senior superintendent, whatever that role is, and you notice that something is off. Drywall's not up yet, right? It's just framing, inspectors will be coming, but you notice something's off. So you have this data in front of you, physical data that you're looking at, but because of your experience, you're playing these scenarios in your head. All right, I can do this, I can do this, but it's going to be best to do this because I'm confident of this outcome. It's that same idea, right? Like you said with the experience, but now with data visualization tools, and you're looking at it at a whole different way. You still need to be able to think about that outcome, the human intelligence part, and making sure that that's still true to your company, no matter what.
And I think just to put a fine point on that, some of the differences AI now you can spin up different visualizations and all that with a lot less work. But it doesn't mean anything if you're not saying, look, I need to be applying our judgment on what it's giving us. So it isn't just taking what it's giving and applying judgment. It's saying, actually, we can work with our partners or just the tools themselves to say, let's optimize this for the types of decisions that we want. This has happened before with dashboards and so on. It's just more flexible and more fluid now and faster to do than it was before. So I think the other piece of this, where you go up that maturity ladder, both from a data standpoint, but also just individually getting comfortable with this stuff, you start to realize that I can make it the way I need it. I don't necessarily, and it being how the data is presented to me, or the workflows, some of them anyway. I can make this so that it works the way we want to work, the way our jobs, the way our people, the way our process works, in a way that just wasn't true before.
To that point, it's less black box at that point. I always use that term. I used to be in a structural engineering company, and at our company, you used to have to do the calculations first before you were able to use the software, right, to understand what looked right. And what you had noted, Hugh, is having that customizable tool will allow a company to know at least what's going on, right? So we have some great off the shelf tools out there that allow you to dip your feet in and learn how this can be done. But I guess the true path is getting to a place where you can use your own data, point models at it, and make it what is good for that company, bespoke for that company. And then it's less black box because you've trained it and designed it, right? So there's more trust in something you create than something out of the box, at least initially, right? When there's
Yeah, I
no
love that. Yeah, I love that. Well, let's take a step back again to the decision-making process, the kind of flow from, let's call it 2023 to now. What kind of journey did ABC go through to get to where you are now? And we can talk a little bit about some thoughts for the future.
Yeah, so ABC is a member-driven organization, volunteer leaders like Steve, right? We have the chapter boards, we have executive committees, we have national boards. So that's what really drives our decision. Strategic planning, strategic goals. We are intentional about all of that. And really, since the date that you mentioned, AI has been incorporated into our strategic plan in some shape or form because of the members. What's unique about technology, innovation, anything along those lines is it's not its own bucket on a strategic plan. So at ABC, we're really defined by things like workforce development, health and safety, number one, right? Government affairs, big one, and then membership, right? Our members. But technology is in all of that, right? We are impacting all of that and collaborating with all of our teams and all of our members. And they come to us going, hey, can you help us with this resource? Can you build this resource or help us take us down this path when it's tech adoption, right? We've had so many conversations with members here. It's fascinating. And actually, this might turn into a question for you, by the way, because I know you're an influential voice in this industry, right? You've met so many people. We've talked to members that, hey, we have all these people working on AI. We're doing this with our data, and we can get into that later if we want to. But if we have the majority of the industry representing small to medium-sized contractors, we're getting questions like, okay, seems overwhelming to me. It feels like I'm going to fall behind. I'm over here trying to implement a project management solution. I'm over here trying to implement iPads for my people in the field. I'm not ready to go down this path, but I also feel like I'm falling way behind. Can you help us out here? Is this bad? Do I need to catch up? We've talked to companies that they want to do more AI. Hey, what resources do you have? Like this conversation we're having, help me connect me with these companies that you partner with. And I'll ask them about their tech stack. Where is your data? And they can't answer that question. And I said, well, you can't have this real conversation about AI unless you start with what technology do you have? Where does your data live? Do you have a project management solution? Are you digitizing your workflows in any sense? So the past couple of years have just been busy. All these conversations around AI, but it's connecting us to so many different people in the industry and kind of on that outside looking in, ready to make a bigger impact as well.
Well, I think the implied question is, are people behind, right? And I think that
What are you
what winds up,
seeing? Yeah, you talk to
yeah,
so many people too. Yeah.
I think everyone is funny. When 95% of people think they're behind, you have to ask behind what? So I think the comforting answer is no, that you're not. At some point you will be, but also it's a little bit about who you're competing against. So are you in a market, or are you competing in projects where one of your main competitors, because of that location or whatever it might be, happens to be very, AI forward? Then maybe. But I think that the risk isn't, again, totally dependent on what you're bidding on. But I think the risk is more about literally risk. The risk right now in terms of being quote unquote behind is young folks are using ChatGPT and Claude and maybe Gemini, possibly Grok. But the point is, there's four or five things they might be using, and if you're not at least giving them a baseline policy, they're going to be using it anyway. And I think there's two areas there. One that we talked about with cybersecurity and turning off training and so on. A bigger one, and this speaks to the point made earlier about intelligence or using your critical thinking, is people have a bad tendency to think that AI is an easy button. They think a chatbot, I can dump a project manual just because it's got a context window that's a million tokens or whatever. Doesn't mean that what comes out is useful, is complete, is the right thing coming out of it. I spent a lot of time at CSI, so specs are kind of top of mind for me. There's a lot in there that gets repeated over and over again. So you may get an answer that's actually in the documents, but isn't quite what you want, or it's making a connection or whatever it is. So I think that the biggest risk really right now is not that your model, that your data is going to get used somewhere, because it's, even if that were true, which again, you can turn that off, it's joining a pool of like X trillion other tokens. Like it's probably never going to create real security risk. Doesn't mean you shouldn't lock it down. It just means, I think the immediate risk that associations can help folks with is say, you need to let people know this isn't an easy button. It's a tool like anything else. You need to understand how to use it well. You need to understand how to guardrail it so that it's giving you back what you want. And also never let something pass from the AI to the final user, right? Like it always needs to have a human look at it. We use the word human in the loop, and no one talks about what they mean by that. And one of the easy ones is someone has to be personally responsible for the outcome or for the output, so that they're on the hook if there's a mistake in there. That's the best way I can think of to make sure that people actually look at it and eyeball it and say, this feels right, this feels, wait, what are you talking about? If there are a bunch of M dashes in there and there's a mistake, people are going to know what just happened. So I think that that's an area where a lot of what you're doing is super helpful, is giving people a sense of some of the limits.
It's just comes down to that education. The sessions that I've been a part of, whether on a panel or leading at any of these chapters, I look at the audience and say, congratulations, step one, you're here to learn about this. Let's go through
Yeah.
it together. And we can customize it throughout. And, fun exercises throughout is like just live demos of whether it's an out of the box solution or at in-house at national, we do have our own employee policy, and the process of going and adopting a tool, and no data, right, no member data, no this, and we have safeguards up. But I know I have access to a paid tool that I can pull up in front of members and say, let's go, what do you think this can do? Let's try it. Let's find some publicly available documents, right? Whether it's specs, right? Like you said, it's it could be a lot of boilerplate stuff, a lot of rinse and repeat. Even just with the biases, thinking, okay, I wanted to create some image about construction. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have all males on a job site, probably because that's the demographics. It's predominantly male, and the female base is growing. But you have to continue to go back in and say, no, that's not what I want. And that's what we're showing people is never, it's trust but verify. There's that quality control military term that's all over construction too. It's just the same idea. It's a tool that's going to help you get through certain tasks, really.
I'll take it a step further and say, don't trust.
Yeah,
Like,
and
like, like,
don't
like,
trust, don't trust and verify.
yeah,
Don't
it's like
trust but verify.
just start verifying. Like just assume that it's an input to your process, not a replacement for. So that's what I mean is like AI isn't great at outputs. It's great at like a step. It's a nice step to put between you and a lot of drudgery, a lot of grinding through documents. So it's absolutely can save you time. It also can quickly give you overviews and summaries, so you kind of you start to get an intuitive sense of what's going on in this project. It's really helpful for that. But in terms of final results, it's an input to someone else's process, not the final result.
That's a great point. We had noted that to our team early on. Is this there is no copying and pasting of the output and using it. It is
Yeah.
exactly what you said. It's a step. It's going to save you minutes, might save you hours. Summarizing, getting ideas, having you think maybe in a way you didn't necessarily before, approach a memo in a different way. The M dash is hilarious. We had a user who has a prompt to get rid of the M dashes that it never remembers, right? But I think they're fooling us by saying the dashes are gone, but I prompted to have them go away in my persistent instructions. I think initially getting your users to use the tool is the first issue, getting dispelling the notion that it is output. But then having guide rails, like when ChatGPT had Teams, right? You can do it a little GPT, do a
Mhm.
prompt, and just have people start learning on that very early on, but putting some guardrails with a prompt from the company to guide them. That helps too. That's training wheels right before people are starting to do their own base prompting.
And what we talk about not making mistakes. What also happens, and this is again what these in person and kind of highly local events are so great at, is when people start to discover, could I get it to do this? So I think that you're talking about an industry loaded with people that are great at solving problems with tools. Well, if you think of this as another tool, you're going to start to see real creativity. We've seen some. I've done some work with some other folks where a contractor said, "Oh, so hang on a minute. We still use Excel for our timesheets, but we have a huge Excel spreadsheet. Like it's 40 rows and God knows how many columns, and no one ever knows what cell they're in." So this guy goes and has ChatGPT tell him how to make the rows and columns light up when you click on a cell so
Mhm.
you can easily check. It had him do Visual Basic. The
Yeah.
day before, if you said to him, "Hey, have you ever heard of Visual Basic?" And he would, of course, said, Visual what?" But it wrote the code. It told them where to do it. Go into Excel, with the developer mode. So now they have this little thing that no one externally would know that they need, and you certainly wouldn't, pay someone to do that for you. So I think that that's the promise of this. When people say, "How's it going to help?" It's actually a harder question to answer outside of a company than it might seem. I mean, you can give generalities, but really the benefit, certainly where we are now, is when you get people that are really good at the job and really understand where the blockers are, to say, "You've just given me a tool, almost a meta tool, right? Not literally from Meta, that allows me to say, there's a lot of little blockers, and my guys, they're and women, their life would be easier if I could make that go away. And let's do those. Let's do one, and then next week we'll do another one, and then another, and we'll have a few of these going on that are just making people able to focus on thinking about the job, not thinking about the process. So with that, let's switch gears real quick to member reactions to this and engagement. How have you guys found members are responding?
So I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's all over the place, and we know the E&R top whatever companies, and we listening to them, their stories, what they're investing in, their R&D. It's amazing to hear that, and then pass those stories over and down to the smaller contractors and seeing what's possible ultimately. But the focus is the majority of this industry. It's small to medium size contractors, and starting them off with maybe this out of the box solution. I mean, this I have to mention the partnerships that we have in place at ABC is through we have a technology marketplace, and then we have a technology alliance. And those are the companies that, Steve, maybe if you want to, you could speak to this if you want on how, why they're important to us, but they get vetted by our company. They just don't come in and say, "Hey, we're here to help." They get heavily vetted by members, by multiple committees, and a lot of them, they have these AI capabilities. So we're leaning on them for these different, ideas throughout the project lifecycle on using AI and getting it in front of these contractors and saying, "Hey, here's an example." Writing a proposal or something with estimating and takeoff or project management or contract compliance. There's these different niches that, okay, here's an idea, get a taste for it. These companies, they're here to help you. They're not just here to they want you to use their product, but they're here to educate on why what they built is going to impact. the industry. And these are a lot of the conversations we're having with members, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of what's possible, what's not possible. And it's not always the tech crowd. I think people assume that any of these tech events that we talked about is just going to be a room full of VDC and then place whatever title after that, right? It's not. It's project managers, it's superintendents, it's executives, it's Steve Sanko's, right?
Finance.
It's the finance,
Funnily
like
enough, at the tech
yes,
events, I'm seeing more finance people than project management. And why is that? I think finance has always been kind of ahead in technology and things like this, and I'm sure finance was in AI before construction. But the finance folks, CFOs, controllers, want to know how these tools can help them in their processes and tasks. So I know ABC isn't just catering to the field. In that, I really smile when I see finance team members at these tech events. As Paul noted, a great service that this committee in ABC does is vetting partners that are focused on construction, not just construction software. Some offer tools and solutions that can be applied in any industry, but to have them get to know our members and what our problems are and have them actually think how they can serve that membership, that's not a one-day process. That's a vetting that goes on for some time before they're on the Tech Alliance or Tech Marketplace. But then we have for our members a swath of choices to not just dip your feet in the water, but to explain the problems you're having with your company, operationally, finance, specifically, and have somebody that will cater to that for your company. I don't know if we want to get into some of those members, but they get into governance, data governance. There's a recent member on here, a vendor that's going into agents, and the temptation is to get in there and design agents to do everything for your company. But even our alliance partners will say, slow down. They did it with me. Tried out one of our partners, Data Grid, and I designed this amazing thing, ingested all my data, and tried to do an agent. They're like, hey, there's steps to this, right? There's ways to do this. So having that consulting and software and experience focused on construction for our members is super helpful. I mean, it's getting you further along the path.
Love it. Well, guys, I think we should bring this to a close. Do you have any kind of final ideas for associations that might be watching this? Just things to focus on, things to think about?
collaboration is key, right? With your membership, even with ABC, we don't live ourselves in a silo. We know other associations exist within the industry, and there's opportunities to pair up and learn from each other. A lot of our members are members of all these other associations, and just see what's the trend, what's the big topic, how can we help influence this industry ultimately. I think that's what it comes down to.
I agree with Patrick. Actually, listen to your members. That's one thing I admire about ABC is it's coming from the ground, and there's a system and infrastructure in place to get that feedback and operationalize it. So, 100% agree.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Hugh.
It was great. Appreciate it.